Informa Markets is India's leading exhibitor organizer that is dedicated to help specialist market customer communities domestically and around the world to trade, innovate, and grow through exhibitions, digital content, business intelligence, and conferences and seminars. Today, our partner, Avaya, I will give a quick brief. Avaya helps companies build intelligent experience that matter for their customers and employees. As a global leader in contact center, unified communications, and cloud, Avaya understands the foundational role of communication for digital transformation. Prioritizing choice and integration, they know that every path to success is unique. Hence, they provide open access to leading vendors and technology for brands to invest in digital transformation in ways that are sensible and result oriented. So, today's topic for Roundtable is creating seamless and engaging customer experiences. As we know, in today's world, customers are as partners and their engagement translates into experiences. These experiences are paramount in building customer loyalty and relations. With digital engagements on the rise, this roundtable is dedicated to the leaders who are pathfinders and trailblazers in the CX landscape, taking it onwards and upwards. So, our speakers are Mr. Deepak Raju, Senior VP and Head of IT PMO, RBL Bank. He is also the Chair of IT Governance and Procurement Committee and Chair of Change Approval and Technology Review Board. And he is leading charge to build and govern a robust IT PMO with a multi-million dollar IT delivery portfolio. We have with us Mr. Anand Kulkarni, Senior President and Program Head, Yes Bank. He has over 18 years of experience in marketing and product development, and his portfolio is dedicated to developing the most conducive customer experience products for its clients. We have Mr. Ravish Bhatnagar, the SVP and Head of Digital Business, IndusInd Bank. Ravish primarily is focusing on growth topics, leveraging digital and analytics, and building customer-centric products in financial institution and customer space for over a decade. We also have Mr. Deepak Mishra, the Director of Customer Insights and Analytics, Refinitiv. He is an innovative AI professional with over 15 years of proven track record in using data to generate accurate, cost-effective, and actionable insights and recommendations to support marketing, sales, product, and brand strategies using ML algorithms and NLP for leading bank and fintech. We have Mr. Suraj Shetty, Head of Customer Experience and Learning and Development at Kisht. He ensures to bring the wow factor in all customer touchpoint and fosters innovation that can help in reaching the next level of growth in customer acquisition and retention. And finally, Mr. Aman Sheikh, VP, IDFC Bank. He is leading the digital and hyper personalization outbound campaigns with video banking for retail liabilities and retail asset customers of the bank. And stringing entire discussion and moderating for today's session, we have Umang Shah, Manager, Sales Engineering for Avaya India West region. He has 18 years of experience in customer relations and employee engagement industry, skilled in business development, solution design, and pre-sale. At Avaya, Umang provides strategic direction to the customer and business leaders to devise digital transformation strategies. So, without further ado, I would like to hand over to Umang to take this discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for that introduction. Since it's all about CX, and even if before the pandemic started, organizations were already moving towards the digital channels and creating those journeys and experiences for their end customers. It's just that the pandemic has accelerated that, and those channels users have increased. Voice being one of those channels, the other channels like chat, emails, those have started increasing a lot. I was just reading a Gartner report which said that 80% of the companies are expecting that customer service will be their primary differentiator. It's now. It's not that it's in the future, but they're saying now it's become the most critical factor for success of the organization, which is there. While the key factors for the CX is still customer efforts, your convenience still matters, but building that frictionless and seamless experience across channels like voice, email, chat, socials are becoming important, because that gives the for the customer single face irrespective of the channels which he's coming in. That's where the focus is. And I understand from for this experience it's been important to know the various touch points which the customers are coming in, use the insights which they are dropping while they are browsing or running through the various modes, and using the insights to build ones. Just to begin on that, to start with few questions on your feedbacks of how you have experienced it in your industry. Maybe I'll start with Deepak Mishran. How technologies can be used to drive frictionless, striking customer-centric experiences. How those could be built. If you could share your thoughts on that.
Umang, you have to specify which Deepak.
Deepak Mishra, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed that too. Right.
No, no problem. Yeah. So basically, the way we see customer experience is entirely different in today's world, right? So today we are not just selling value, or not just selling a product to a customer to let them buy more. It is about enabling customer to achieve their goals. So, for example, if you see a bank is actually helping a customer to buy, let's say, their dream home, and they come up with a product of home loan or car or for anything for that matter. Same is true for almost everything. So there are two aspects to it. One is the product that you are creating that should be user friendly, or customers should be delighted to use it. Second is the service piece, which actually when the customer needs some support, they come reach out to you. And that piece is very critical because the people who are actually going to support the customer, they should be equipped with the right tools. So from our side, the team which I work with, our job is to make their job easier. So if their job is easy, they go out to customer and they actually interact in a way that delights the customer. Right. So another thing is when we talk about technology, what we need to also showcase is the technology is an enabler. It is not like preconceived thing like it will kill jobs. So if people in your company are worried about that the adoption of new technology may make my position in jeopardy, they are never going to adapt it or maybe implement it correctly. So the idea is understand what the customer needs for their success. Then you talk to your front end team what they need for making the customer successful, and then build the tech around that. So I'll take a pause here and maybe we can discuss later more.
Yeah. Anyone would like to add any thoughts in case if they have? Because as Deepak rightly said, that giving that front end insights and the journeys and giving it to the front end team is becoming now critical, because customers have been innovative, searching around and then coming to the uh, vendor or the company to which they were interacting after they've done their bit of search now. Anyone wants to add any thoughts? Just one?
Just
Okay.
to build on what Deepak Mishra talked about, this is my favorite example, right? If Rolls-Royce were to just follow a product-centric approach, we probably end up buying $1,000 car that can give you 100 kilometers a liter, but the probability of an engine failure will happen once a year.
One.
It's always about building a building a service experience, and not just a product growth led approach, or solving a particular problem using a product. And those are like in the 1970s and 80s. Today is always about building customer experience at the experience layer. I think Deepak's point was just bang on the head.
True. Ravish, your thoughts, your experience that you have built that enabled creating seamless, engaging experiences across the various touch points which your end customers are. Like IDFC will have websites, branches, mobiles. So, how do you, your experience on that of creating and leveraging the customer data touch points which you all have and insights, how have you built in your
Yeah.
organization?
So I think I'll just maybe talk about my experience of not just at Indocin, but beyond as well, because I've been doing this even as a part of my previous company, which is one of the largest consulting firm in the world. So
Okay.
see, the idea is that, for example, from a customer experience lever, right? If you want to provide the best of customer experience, And if that is one of the operating principles that the organizations take, right, and a lot of organizations have it in, at least in their motto, right? So the first and foremost thing would be to try and provide, in this age of digital, at least try and provide end-to-end sort of a digital experience, right? If you can't, because there are a lot of services, lots of things where you cannot, at least try and do STP to a certain extent, straight through processes. If not, then at least ensure that for customer you are taking in all the requests in one go, right? Because they love it if you are able to do that, right? One stop. And even if you can't provide STP, right, try and at least create these back offices. There are lots of new technologies are available from an orchestration perspective, where you can do these things offline as well, right? But for customer, you have taken everything in one go, and then you can let them maybe at a delayed lag, right? And while you are doing that, right, and there will still be certain things that you can't do, in the background, right? At least try and ensure that visually, you are able to provide the right statuses, giving them the visibility at one go, because I think they don't want at any point in time that they are not clear of where their request is, right? I think there is a right, there is always a right, a way of doing things, and there is a right way of doing things, right? So when you, I will not, let's say, I will talk about some of the companies where you just take the experience and it's a wow experience. Like Amazon has done a visual IVR, right? And really well they do it, right? And immediately when you're not able to find the request, when you say call comes to you immediately,
Immediately.
right? But there are a lot of companies that are trying to do this, but the call will not come to you, and the call might come to you when you are in a meeting with your MD, right? Or whatever, right? It happens, right? It's a day and age. I think it's all about how do you build it correctly. I think that is what is more important. And when you want to do this, I think Deepak has rightly nailed that. The front end technology obviously has to be foremost. You need to think of what do you need to deploy. But I think what is also an element that is important is how are you constructing your middle office, which is becoming important, and how are you even constructing your back office, right? Because the number of requests, the latency, some of these principles, while the customer is not exposed to it, but it becomes extremely valid if you want to provide end-to-end experiences in the right manner, either STP, or at least provide them with the status at all points in time, right? I think that's what I think. Just I would extend his point a bit further, but what he started off is the right thing.
Yeah, Ravish, you said it really well. Is not the UI or the presentation only which needs to be taken care of. There are other things at the back end also which needs to be taken care. So your journeys when you build it, it's not only the front end, but you need to ensure that the whole journey piece is taken care of, as you rightly said. And Suraj, you have been Kist has been one of the leaders in the digital side. So you would like to share any on thoughts on that same, on the experience across journeys and using the insights?
Yes, Umang. So, to add to what Ravi said, so being an NBFC, we operate in a banks and NBFCs, they operate in a very highly regulated industry, and it is very efficiently regulated by the RBI. So this motivates us to always have higher standards of customer experience and resolution tracking. So every customer who is unhappy, he tends to approach, because today customers are well educated. They know how to get the resolution. For example, if you ask a layman, he will tell you कि आपको resolution नहीं मिलता तो Twitter handle पे डाल दो आपको जल्दी reply आ जाएगा. So everyone
Yeah.
knows how to get these things done. So it's necessary that you educate customers which are the channels they need to approach you. And also it's necessary, for me it has been necessary that I have been focusing on two things. Does customer understand where he needs to approach first? And second, what kind of customers come to us and why are they coming to us? So we are present across email, chat, calls, missed calls, and social media. Apart from that, in order to check how why customers come to us, we ensure that each and every customer interaction is tagged in a way that the respective team knows that these queries are emerging because of a fault or a technical issue at their end. So for example, if a customer is writing to us with respect to a technical issue in the app while applying for a loan, so words like technical issue, error, etc., these get tagged automatically based on the words. And whether it's a call, chat, or social media DM or an email, automatically these taggings happen, and these taggings flow back to the analytics team, and they send us a end of day report which tells us that these were the kind of queries that we got today. And also the most important part that I have noticed is that more power has to be given to the front end executive, because more power the front end executive has, the faster resolution and more effective resolution you can get. Because it's very tiring to hear a executive say that he will get back to us in 24 hours, he will speak to his manager. So it's necessary that small things or medium priority things are given in his hand, he's trained well, so that he can handle those. For example, during the pandemic days, we had customers coming to us for moratorium, that I want moratorium on my loan, I want extension.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, we had this that every moratorium needs to be approved, which increased the timeline and which made the customer irate, because he was already in a situation which was very bad, like he was hospitalized or something. So we started training our executives, and within 1 week, every executive was an expert. He knew which customers need to be provided the moratorium, what questions to ask, and how to activate it. So this brought down the resolution time to uh, like 1 minute. On the same call, he got the moratorium, it's activated, he can see it in the app. Now there is no approval required, but yes, some cases would be edge cases wherein wrong moratorium would have been given, but we are ready to take that risk. So just because 5% errors are happening, we cannot risk the experience of the remaining 95 customers. So, and even for the 5% errors that happen, it's necessary you have a proper audit system in place. So my experience has been that using analytics for daily customer service is a very powerful tool, and it's necessary in today's age that every company has a specialized analytics team, and one person from the analytics team needs to be dedicated towards customer service, who's tracking customer service and giving interesting insights to the management as well as the team.
Right, Suraj. You rightly said, Suraj, which you said that I was reading through the Gartner's insights of where 2021 and 22 would be. And they mentioned that it's not only giving the services, but also doing that emotional connect during his time of needs is
Right.
becoming critical. And as you rightly said, it's not that no one wants to hear that, okay, I'll come back to you. And that's where the insights and getting the information from the back end and presenting it to the front end makes a big difference. Uh,
And I
Mr.
think
Mishra,
What Ravish said, sorry to interrupt. What
go ahead.
Ravish said, he took an example of Amazon. I think that has been an example always for me also. Whenever I contact Amazon, the kind of experience that I get, it is amazing. And that's what I want to replicate always to the organization where I work for. So I never get to hear that I will get back to you. They have a resolution at the first connect. So that is very important.
True, and I think the benefit of or the advantage which they get is because of the knowledge which they have of the
Yes.
customers and the process, the way they have defined that. So, Mr. Mishra, for on your side, because everyone is saying about insights, analytics, and I think you play a major, your company plays a major role in that. Your thoughts on that?
Sure. So coming back to technology piece, right? You said like how it can help in reducing friction. So this is the era that we are living in, and a lot of us have seen those days when we used to fix meeting verbally by meeting actually, right? So we used to meet with our friends and then say that okay, Thursday 7 o'clock we'll meet again. We always used to meet at that time. Then came the era of mobile phones, wherein bulk of your conversation used to happen with missed call for this, two missed call for that, one for this, and all those things. And now we are in an era where we don't need to worry about. We just need to WhatsApp or any kind
Exit.
of texting, anything. It's almost real time. So if you see the user and if we look at it in a different way, all of us are user, and all of us are service provider, all of us are product developer or a business person, right? And all of us are user also simultaneously. So what my interaction with IDFC is, I learn something from there. My interaction with someone else, I learn from something from there, and then I go ahead and try to imitate some of the things from my customer. So the way I see this, technology is not the only thing right now. Wherein only thing that I think means you cannot focus on one technology and say that this will help us in achieving all the goals. You have to integrate multiple pieces of technology, and you have to look out for the places where your users are going. So if bulk of your users are using something, let's say social media, you have to place your presence on social media. You cannot just stay out and putting billboards. That is one thing. Second thing, what's happening these days is we are generating lots and lots of data, right? And then there are second piece wherein we have tons of algorithms, and those fancy algorithms are telling you that it can achieve only now, the difficulty is that people are realizing now how to remove noise from this data using which algorithm. So you need to set up practices in place which actually identify what you want to achieve. First, you decide that, and then you come to data and technology piece. Whether you want to analyze your data through natural language processing algorithm, or you want to do some computer vision, or you simply want to do some qualitative things from your business understanding, saying that okay, if I do this, my information will be available. So coming to the last point of this, information flow is very important. Whether you use technology or you communicate yourself, if you can reach out to customers at right time with right information, that's what people are looking for. I'm fine if my laptop breaks for an hour or two or so, or my internet breaks an hour or so, that is fine, as long as I'm aware of that. If they tell me 1 hour advance on a day, then fine. But suddenly if it breaks and if you are not doing anything, I'm actually not very happy with that. So if we keep this thing in mind, technology to integrate, then take the information flow in right direction, I think it delights the customers.
True, rightly said. And let me bring Mr. Anand in this conversation on how do you think customer experience offerings will be going forward, sir?
So, you know, I'm sure all of us are well read and tracking the trends and what everybody's doing. But largely, I feel if you really look at what I feel will impact. Okay, sorry, I'm just driving somewhere, so and I'm taking the call from there. Uh, but
It's
I
a new
think,
background, Anand. It's a new background. We love
sorry,
it. It's a new background. First time we love it.
yeah, on the go, everything's on the go.
This is
So,
technology.
well, I think this is something which I picked up in my earlier organization, and no matter how fancy your technology is, which company you're working, I think there's six things which basically define customer experience, and they'll keep defining customer experience even in the future. Is basically, it's called PQ Fast, which is basically
Okay.
P stands for personalized, Q stands for quick, right? F for first time right, and I think that is where a lot of people get it wrong. uh, First time and multiple times. You need to get it first time right, and otherwise you lose the customer. The faster you get, the better you get in getting first time right. I think those are the people who are going to succeed. Anytime, anywhere. So an omni-channel experience, I think that's what is going to make a big difference
Make
going
difference.
forward, right? And personally, I believe in S, which is your simplicity. um, so whatever I work with, typically I would try and get all the complex things behind the scene, and my user could be my internal customer or could be my external customer, and I try and keep it simple, right? So that's one test which I definitely use, and I think the simpler the interfaces get, the simpler the experience gets. I think that's what going to make a difference. And lastly, I think the T, I would think, stands for thoughtful. And, the more thoughtful this journey becomes, taking care of what it happens, where, um, the better, the customer experience is going to be. Typically, financial services, you can largely put it into two kinds of services. One is where you are actually, opening an account or, doing a savings account kind of a job, which is basically taking money from the customer. Two is where you are giving money to the customer.
Giving money.
These are Banking is very simple. You take money from somebody, you give money to somebody. There is nothing complex in it. Giving money to somebody is easy because he's looking for it. So he's desperate. He's ready to try out more things. Um, so the market is ready. It's for you to actually be
Grab
available.
it.
The faster you are available for such a customer, the better. Taking money from the customer, on the other hand, is extremely difficult. You will not find anybody, you're looking around desperately to open a savings account, or to desperately put money in a mutual fund. That desperation doesn't happen, but you will have somebody who needs instant funds for hospitalization, right? So where you're taking money from the customer, I think that journey is tougher. And if we apply these six things on both sides, those are the ones who I feel will keep continuing, continue to succeed. And that's true for every industry, actually, just not financial services.
Rightly said, Anand. And I'm going to warn you, I'm going to use these for my discussions with other customers, because the acronym which you have put in is very perfect, and it actually explains the whole customer's journey, which you mentioned on where you need to focus on. Very well put in, PQ fast. That's a good, and I'm sure everyone else would also agree. Mr. Roja, for you, what do you think where the customer offerings will go ahead? Deepak Roja?
Oh, hi, that was
Raju?
for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was for you.
Okay, so much of it is been talked about. Let me try and give you a little bit of a flavor. See, back in the day when we were doing our MBA, or any business management degrees, we were always taught about four P's. Product, price, promotion, packaging. Right?
Packaging.
And the business model of the 1980s, 90s was always around product, and then you have your basically your channels that you use for distributing a product, and then you have customers, which is the typical pyramid. But today's businesses are concentric businesses. So you have the customer right at the center, and around the customer you have what's called as an experience layer, and around the experience layer you have different distribution channels. So the pyramid way of business models have now led to what's called as a concentric way of business model, and that's primarily our focus towards solving a customer problem, putting the customer first and solving what the customer problems really are. And that's the reason why startups are much faster to solving a customer's problem, and why they already have that right of ownership, right? And that's what the large banks, large institutions, large companies have somehow taken it for granted, that the customer belongs to the bank, customer belongs to the financial institutions in any case. But that's where we have seen the disruption right under the nose of these large incumbents. um, if you look at I think this is something that Ravish also talked about. See, today's customers are are living in what's called as a subscription based economy, right? We subscribe to services like Amazon, we subscribe to Netflix, we subscribe to Hotstar, 1mg, Paytm, Cred, and we are happy paying a certain fee and happy receiving certain services which we think is really top class. What I am predicting is that we will move away from subscription based economies into relationship based economies, right? Companies will try to want to understand the value that is being delivered by these services, so called services or experiences, because it's always it's a very asymmetrical relationship, right? The large companies of today's era, they define the rule sets. The Amazons and Netflix and Hotstars of the world, they define the rules, and they expect the customers to basically participate in the rules. They interact with products and services, they pay, they provide feedback, and there's a feedback loop, and it goes back into these companies improving their services. But that also over the next 3 5 years is going to break down with the advent of what we call as decentralized economies, right? If you're noticing what's happening in the metaverse, or if you had experiences interacting with AXA Infinity or Roblox or Super Social or Omniverse that Nvidia is now
Right.
I see Nvidia is another example, right? There's a classic hardware company that just makes GPU, and today they have a very fairly large software service, and they have now said, okay, we're going to build the next Omniverse platform. Now this is all decentralized businesses. There's no one single entity that's going to control the experience. There are companies that are vying to build the platform, but the experience layer will be built by a lot of startups who are going to be very close to what the customers are going to be interacting with, right? So I mean that's my take. So primarily product centric approaches are going to collapse. You will no longer have pyramid based businesses. We're already starting to see the next $1 billion businesses. All almost every unicorn in India, about 80 85 unicorns in India, all have customer first sort of an approach. This concentric business model that I was talking about. But next 3 5 years, you will have decentralized economies that will just come and completely disrupt everything that we're doing. And there are in banks like JP Morgan, etc., are already on. They've already announced their presence on Metaverse. There's have a lounge called the Onyx Lounge, and they're basically just experimenting, trying to see
Experimenting.
what the 12-year-old and 14-year-old kids living in an apartment in New York, what kind of NFTs are they going to sell, and how much $1 million money that they're making. And they are very closely watching some of these experiences, and that will become very defining.
Yeah, you rightly said that the experiences which you're going to build is not on both, because even if you look at the India culture and it's true abroad also, you have two different sect of people, the Gen X or the older ones, and then the new Gen Z, which is they who are dynamic. They don't want a call to be done. It's more self-run, self-experience, looking at the new platforms and all that, right? And that's where anyone wants to add anything else before I move to on the challenging side. Yes, Deepak.
Yeah, so just one thing. Deepak actually mentioned very interesting point, right? Decentralization of the economy. And I see that that's definitely the way forward, right? So the way we want actually to interact with people, that is the way forward. But what is happening, if you see closely, the technology has enabled the concentration of power to few tech companies, right? So if you see in terms of information, right, now the amount of data these big companies own, that is like something which they can manipulate, right? Manipulate when I say in the positive sense, right? So they have a lot more capacity as against someone who is, let's say, a small startup, right? So earlier, what used to happen, if you want to gather some data, you go ahead and do market research, right? So almost everybody was on same footing, so maybe little more resources, less resources, that's it. But nowadays, with the advent of all the social media platform and maybe different kinds of tech platform, even for that matter, the platform that we are using to interact with each other, the data is actually concentrated. So it is actually centralization of something that we want to democratize. So it will be interesting to see how these two opposing forces will play out in future.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge on those fronts of getting two different thought processes to merge and have a central path which is there. Suraj, coming back to you, how how have you mitigated the bottlenecks in the path of innovations the way we spoke right now, where I want to start something new, and how do you think the bottlenecks can be handled in those cases?
Okay, so being in the fintech space, I have seen that when it comes to innovation, uh, the management as well as the team has been very supportive, and there hasn't been any kind of people-related bottlenecks that I have faced till now with respect to innovation. But yes, there are some bottlenecks with respect to the culture that you build around your team. So one thing that we have made sure, there are two things that we make sure is done. Number one is that every day we have these meetings on KRAs and the metrics, resolution stats, etc. But there is a weekly meet which we never discuss. We never discuss metrics, resolution rates, stats on during the weekly meet. The weekly meet is reserved for only one topic. That is, how do we resolve? How do we reduce the number of queries that we are getting? A particular query, if it's increasing in number, how do we bring it down? Should we give something in the app so that customer don't call us? So how do we resolve it? And second thing that we discuss is, if an employee has any kind of ideas, new ideas that he wants to implement, or new technologies that he wants to implement, then we give it a try. We find vendors for this technology, and we also involve the particular employee with the product team so that he can be part of that implementation, and this motivates the employees. Third, I would say is that any kind of new technology that comes in, so the first thing that we need to ensure that innovation happens is that whenever a new things comes into the market, it's necessary that we try them out, because usually the practice has been that, okay, there is a voice bot in the market, so let me wait and see how voice bots work. If I hear a lot of people saying that voice bots are good, then I will use it. So we don't take that approach. What we do instead is, we have been like one of the among the first who have adopted WhatsApp chatbots, and now we are experimenting with new technologies which are voice bots, speech analytics, and email bots. So these are pretty expensive in the beginning, but we do it on a pilot basis to understand whether they are suitable for the organization and for the type of customers we have. And we keep analyzing them for at least 3 to 6 months. And if we find that this new technology is not adding value to the process, then we leave it. But if it's adding value, then we build it on for all our customer service channels. So I think for innovation to happen, it's necessary that you keep your eyes and ears open. And whenever any new technology or any new process that comes in, you need to test it on a pilot basis on a small team. Like you can test it on the calling level or the chat or email level and see how the results are with respect to customer experiences. It can give you a lot of boost uh, to the innovation that's happening in your team.
Yeah, that's critical to try it out something before you take it to the large scales. And when you're trying it out, to look into all the 360 degrees, not only from the technology or any one side, but look at the whole holistic ones. Ravish, in case if you want to add before I move to Mr. Raju for his thoughts on
Yeah.
the bottlenecks in the innovation side.
Yeah. So, see, what I have found really helpful, right? I think piloting is obviously one approach that is always good, right? You can always do it. But sometimes, when you don't have the capacity or the, specific strength, resources, are always a crunch in the current digital economy, right? So, what I've always found is maybe utilize what I use is as a use case approach, right? So, start with the use cases, the features, etc. So define what do you want to do with the solution or technology that you want to adopt, right? So define the use cases, define the different features that or the experiences or the innovations that you'd want to offer to the customers. Define all of them, then take the different solutions, what are available
See,
in the market, right? Yeah, and then try and do a mapping against that, right? Because see, sometimes maybe the number one solution out there might not be the number one solution for you, right? So you try and use the use case approach, try and then take the solutions, map it on the different use cases, features, innovations, whatever you want to drive first. And then once you have done that, it's still, if you are still struggling and if you have the resources, definitely do pilot, right? It's a very very perfect solution out there to get the right thing. But once you have done this entire benchmarking, right, against each of the use cases, then go and define, take the one which you have finalized, right? They define the right architecture, because if you want to, in this in this particular day and age, if you want to define the right experiences, I think it's very very important to jump on the bandwagon of definitely personalization, right? The way you personalize the experiences, it's very important, and that is what is going to I think Deepak talked about, both the Deepaks in fact talked about this thing in the past, right? So define that, and to deliver the right kind of personalization, you'll have to define the right architecture. You will never be able to do that without redefining the architecture or adding elements, right? I think that is essentially extremely important. And then define the triggers, the events, the campaigns, whatever you want to do, and then start measuring it in the right manner, right? I think if you adopt this approach, you can mitigate some of the risk that you end up seeing in the world, right? You have the solution in place, but it's not doing what you wanted to do, right? I think you tend to mitigate some of it by following the right approach.
Yeah, Ravi, you rightly said that. In case if you have the use cases and the solution or the pain areas which you want to eliminate by using that and mapping it with the various product lines, you might be more successful in your new innovations coming up with new, and those would be more successful while rolling it out, right?
Yeah, and this is specifically helpful when you don't have a lot of data points in the market about those solutions, right? If you
Those
have data
solutions.
points, if you have feedback available from other, then you will be less or more or less sorted. But this helps really in emerging areas, right, where you want to specifically innovate.
Yeah, where you want to innovate, get out something new, like the metaverse, which is there, which we don't have a lot of information on how the users are going to accept it and all that. But then, yes,
Yeah, I
it
was
is
trying to
moving.
access Onyx 3 4 days back. I was like, how do you get to Onyx, right? So how do you get to Decentraland and how do you get to Onyx, right? But I was not exactly successful. I'll ask Deepak separately, right? How do you get there? So
Right. Anand, sir, do you want to add anything in that? It's okay. I'll, yeah. So, Mr. Raju, on your side, what's your way? How do you remove the bottlenecks in the path of innovation, as Ravi said and others sort of spoke about? Any thoughts on your thoughts from you on that?
Well, I think Suraj talked about it a little bit on and Ravish touched upon having a use case centric approach. The way I look at innovation is not such a big deal, right? Innovation in a typical common parlance is just having the jugaad mindset. How do you look at a particular problem and solve it innovatively for your customer segment? Because innovation can mean a number of things for a number of people. Like Netflix might look at innovation differently. RBL Bank will look at it innovation very differently. Facebook will look at it very different, or Facebook or Meta might look at innovation very differently. So today, I think if there are two industries that stand out in terms of innovation, is one financial services, most definitely, and healthcare. This is where the most amount of technological adoption is happening. And I think, like Anand, mentioned at the beginning of the conference, banking is just parity business, right? It's about just managing demand supply of money. Now we once we add the affordable technology element to it, and today, innovative technology is actually very easy to access. It's very easy to experiment. It's easy to fail fast, which is what Suraj talked about, right? Can you take this use, glean the insights of having known your customer, having known the way they are interacting with your products, be able to fast loop and build a better experience. That's all there is to it. As long as you can crack that problem and scale, then you have you have a winner in the market that can become a cash cow for you, right? So it's not such a big deal. Innovation is not something, it's not rocket science. It is very simple way of looking at your customer's pain point, being very obsessed about how do you want to solve for it. If there are no data points, no problem, just take a gut call. Have that jugaad mindset to be able to go there and solve it and see for yourself, and be available and open to your customers. um, and that's what new age companies are doing. Look at Razorpay, you look at Paytm, you look at some of the buy now pay later sort of players, right? Who would have thought that something like a lazy pay will come and just usurp 10% of market share, which is absolutely like a very lazy product. It's not I would say it's like totally you know, uh, out of the blue. I mean, this is something that any customer, that any middle class salaried person would always want to
Plus
aspire.
one.
Let's say wants an iPhone. Yeah, I mean, can I buy an iPhone with my salary and be able to pay it at the end of the month? It's a very simple problem, but they solved it quite nicely, and they made the payment journey so relatively smooth for the end customer that it just happens right behind the transaction. It's not that you have a lot of sign-ups and onboarding and pre-boarding and that kind of stuff. So most companies today are already thinking about becoming customer centric, having a very obsessive approach about your customer, being able to listen to and glean facts, and try and improve their ability to service products and services innovatively.
Yeah. Uh, Keeping continuing in that, which is there's the thoughts and the other details which you all gave would be useful for the rest of the people who are going to hear this once the recording is posted and the other stuff. Thanks for that. Anyone wants to add any closing comments or anything which anyone wants to do?
Just one thing on innovation piece. I think we got very good insights from all of our panelists, right? So for example, Suraj mentioned something about culture of innovation, right? Ravi said use case based thing, and Deepak mentioned very rightly, let's not make innovation a big thing, right? So what I mean, in my experience, we have seen the biggest bottleneck to innovation is innovation mindset itself, right? So people think that innovation means developing something new which nobody has seen, while innovation is also about removing small obstacles from here and there, which can optimize your processes and make your life easier. So for example, I'll give you an example. In our company, we typically do a lot of hackathons, right? So people come up and solve a problem. So those hackathons are typically 1 or 2 days long, wherein you come and you get the problem, you solve it. So we decided to do it in a different way. We thought like it's not an exam, right? So it is not that we are asking people to compete. So let's do something wherein people have time to study the problem and analyze it, right? So we reached out to various teams who are posting some problem that they want to solve. Because of lack of resources, they cannot spend time. So we posted that problem. We gave around 4 weeks to the participant teams.
Participants.
Plus, we said you also have access to these people who are posting problem and some subject matter experts. So it is like you interact with everybody and come up with a solution which can be implemented. And like out of 10 entries, two solutions were already accepted and they are going to be implemented. Three are in pipeline. So the teams are working. And it is also good talent hunting within the organization itself. So culture of innovation is the most important thing. Where you say that okay, that is fine to fail, that is absolutely fine. But innovation is not a lazy process. Don't get into the habit that I will sit in a lunch and innovate something. It is a persistent and consistent efforts that will pay off ultimately.
Yeah, Deepak, you rightly said that innovation need not be icebreaker every time. It could
Yeah.
be some small stuff which you are solving, but like 40% or 50% or 60% of your problem of the organization which you are solving, that can also be an ice. It could be a revolutionary change for the organizations, as you rightly said. Anyone, anything else before I close this and thank you for all the participation? Anyone wants to add anything? I just leave the floor open.
So, Umang, just this is an interesting question, particularly on how do you get to do innovation. And I like what Deepak said, and both the Deepaks actually. Um, so I think to do anything, you need one or two strong reasons. Okay. Um, so you need to identify that reason. Okay, and be very forceful in your organization on that reason. Okay. Uh, so let's say it's about personalization. Let's say, okay, and you strongly believe in that, and that's a strong enough reason for you to innovate, for example, right? So you find one good reason why you need to innovate, and be a maniac about it actually. And in every forum, every possible insight you can pick up from market or your own data, you use to basically support your own reason,
Make
right?
the
And it's
case
not only to
stronger.
innovate, but yeah, make your case stronger. Like Ravi said, that there is use case, and that's the application of it. But let's say you want to do something fundamentally different, then you will pick up one or two things, and you find one or two very good reasons to do it, and then you find a sponsor. Okay, when I say sponsor, it's somebody who basically runs with it with you, you know who happens to be a key decision maker in the organization, and that's a support system you need. You can't innovate on your own. I mean, you need a strong support system, and therefore you need to start convincing people on why it's required, and get more people on your side, and then it moves pretty fast, is my experience. So I think the first step is to find a reason why you want to innovate on a particular field, on any of the axis. It could be, as I said, simplicity or personalization or being anywhere anytime, whichever axis you take, and there could be more access to it, apart from the 4 5 I mentioned. um, and I think that's how you can push innovation.
Yeah, thanks everyone for the great insights, and let's see how the customer experience landscapes is going to modify. It's not only on the external side towards your customers, but it's also internally now, which is also changing. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I am honored and really thankful to all my panel members and Team Avaya for this exciting and riveting roundtable. There is so much information. I am sure this peer connect has, somewhere shaped a lot of ideas for the next wave of customer experience. So thank you all.